And for more on the showdown with the Libyan ship, I'm now joined by Israeli-based journalist and Middle East expert James Marlow. Good to speak to you, Mr. Marlow. Now, if this ship docks in Egypt, as is widely expected, is that the optimal solution to this confrontation?
Well, the solution to the confrontation in terms of bringing the humanitarian aid would have been to have brought it directly to Ashdod, for the goods, for the humanitarian aid to have been offloaded at Ashdod, taken into the border crossing with Gaza, and under the auspices of the United Nations and the Red Cross, like everyone else is doing.
Well, the ship's organisers say that they invited the Israeli Navy on board to search the cargo, as they claim that they feared there might be weapons on board. So why might that not have been enough for Israel to allow aid to get directly to Gaza?
Because the international community already knows that that's not the way to get humanitarian aid to the Palestinians, not to Hamas or Islamic Jihad or any of the other radical groups there, but to the Palestinian people who need this aid, who want this aid. And the way to do this is, as I said, to do it through the proper checkpoints, the proper United Nations and Red Cross onlookers, and to make sure that they go in under their auspices, because otherwise, in some cases, which has happened previously, that Hamas has been known, certainly during the Gaza war a couple of years ago, Hamas has been known to take the best stuff for themselves.
Okay, well, if these proper official procedures, as you've called them, are in place to get humanitarian aid into Gaza, why do you then think that Libya would want to irk Israel by, say, publicly trying to get the ship to break the blockade?
Well, there's no love lost from Libya towards Israel. Libya doesn't accept Israel's existence. It doesn't believe Israel has a right to exist, and continues to call, even verbally today, the destruction of Israel. So the fact that they wish to actually do complete opposite of what most other international organizations are doing today is no real surprise. The fact that it happens to be the son of Colonel Gaddafi is also no real surprise. But everyone should have realized that the Israelis were not going to allow this ship to dock into Gaza, to be met by Hamas, to be met by the radicals, to be met by the waving flags, because it would have been a serious blow for the Palestinian people living in Gaza itself. This just strengthens the terrorist organizations like Hamas and Islamic Jihad.
But is there a possibility, do you think, that if this aid cargo is unloaded outside Gaza, that it might never actually reach the Palestinian people who so desperately need it? The humanitarian disaster is still ongoing in the region, isn't it?
Definitely. That's right. And that's why I said the best solution would have been to bring this aid directly to Ashdod, where it would have been offloaded. And it would have crossed over into Gaza, as everyone knows. I mean, before the incident occurred with the Turkish ships, there were around 150 million tons, if I remember correctly, worth of goods, worth of humanitarian aid going into Gaza every single week. So there was no humanitarian crisis. If there was a humanitarian crisis, you can bet your bottom dollar that every single network around the world would have been reporting it. Enough of them have correspondence actually in the Gaza Strip itself. Of course, there was a concern about certain things like pasta, for example, like certain Belgian chocolate or Swiss chocolate, things that were not allowed under the embargo that Israel made against Gaza because of Hamas. And of course, as you know, that was all lifted. The only things now not allowed in is any arms or any weaponry, cement, bricks, that type of thing that could be used offensively against Israel. So the fact is that Israel has lifted all of these restrictions, the pasta and everything like that. But I just want to say that there are still many people here in Israel that thought that was a wrong decision on behalf of the Israeli government, because you have on the other side a man called Gilad Shalit, which is pretty well known around the world today, who was kidnapped by one of these organizations from Gaza, from the Israeli side, who's been sitting in a dungeon for the last more than 4 years, who is not allowed any visits from the Red Cross or anywhere like that. So Israelis felt, well, why should Palestinians have a nice Italian meal one night? Why should they have the Swiss or Belgian chocolate when Gilad Shalit can't actually...
that a lift has been, the ban has been lifted by the Israelis of food staples such as pasta, as you mentioned, getting into the Gaza Strip. Do you think that there now is no possibility that this cargo won't be delivered from Egypt to Gaza?
Well, who knows? That's not Israel's responsibility. If the cargo is now in Egypt and it's not in Ashdod, then who knows? I would, of course, as many Israelis would like to see, if it is humanitarian aid, if it is medicine, which is already going into Gaza, if it is diapers for the babies, which is already going into Gaza, if it is food and water, which is already going into Gaza, if you want to bring in more, great. Israel is, generally Israelis are quite in favor of that, except for the ones that I mentioned, that people felt that they should have been some type of deal with regard to Gilad Shalit, and maybe the Red Cross should have been allowed to visit him in return for these extra goods going into Gaza.
Okay,
but as
Marlow,
the Israeli Prime Minister said, that now Hamas...
Journalist and Middle East expert James Marlow, many thanks for those thoughts.
Okay.